Hi everyone, I'm Talia. Welcome to Tales of Triumph, the Love Medals podcast, where we share stories of victories in life and courage in the face of adversity. Thank you for celebrating perseverance, purpose, and love with us today. We invite you to join our community by subscribing now and finding inspiration from victories big and small. Your engagement and support mean a great deal to us, enabling us to grow and inspire even more people. Our guest today embodies remarkable strength alongside a truly gentle and compassionate heart. Tania Downey is a Reiki master and teacher, as well as an intuitive energy healing practitioner. In 2012, Tania's life was forever changed when her son, Zack, at the age of 16, was diagnosed with cancer. Her incredible journey has led her to a place of personal healing and a commitment to helping others in their healing journeys as well. Through her own healing and reflections, she has realized that our darkest days become our greatest teachers. It's an honor to share with you my conversation with Tania. This episode contains content of a sensitive nature that may be triggering for some individuals. Thank you, Tania, so much for being a guest with us today. It's an honor and a joy to have you. You are a beautiful soul whose story really does travel through all the colors of life, in that it's a heartbreaking story, but it's also one that is truly inspiring because of who I know you to be. And that is someone who has found a way to still experience joy and happiness in your life after what you and your family have been through. And then to take that experience and be of service to others who are in need of help and support and healing. Thank you for being with us today and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me.
You and I know each other because I have been to see you for Reiki sessions and intuitive readings. And over the years, you've shared a little bit about Zack, but I actually only really know a few things about him. I'd love to start there. Could you please tell us about Zack? What were some of his interests? What is his personality like?
Oh, my goodness. His personality, he was happy all the time. He loved to laugh. He was funny, kind, compassionate. He loved his family, his friends. He loved school. And he was an avid sports fanatic. As young as I can remember, we would buy him all these fancy things, and then he would always choose a ball. And he excelled in sports. Everything he did, he excelled in.
He sounds like an amazing soul, just like you, very similar to things that you described. So, when and how did you find out that he had cancer?
He was 16 years old at that time. So that was in October of 2012. We had just finished off a huge, amazing season in baseball. They walked away with a big championship, which was incredible and powerful and amazing. He had mentioned a few things to me throughout the last month of baseball, and he'd say, "I'm having a hard time running to the bases. I'm getting winded, tired," and I just chalked it up to he wanted it so bad that he was working so hard. Plus, he had just started his grade 11th year, and he was told that he had made it onto the senior basketball team. So he was working hard in the gym and the weight room. I just assumed that he was pushing himself a little bit too hard.
Right.
And then it got to the point where he was waking up, and to me, his face was swollen. Only moms would recognize the subtle difference. And he had this pain in between his shoulder blades. I had called his coach, which is also his teacher. And I said, something's not right. Can you just keep an eye on Zack and let me know if you notice any subtle differences?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, it's funny that you asked me because when he was in the weight room, I noticed that his face was swelling. It got worse. The swelling, the pain in his shoulder kept happening. I took him for 2 weeks. We've seen 7 doctors in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And the last day he woke up and I couldn't recognize him.
Oh.
And I said, Zack, you can't go to school. I'm going to take you to the hospital and we need to get this checked out. You just have to trust me.
Yeah.
They put us in the triage area and I told them that I wasn't going to leave until I seen a pediatrician.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we sat there for 16 hours in that triage area.
Wow.
And we did end up seeing the pediatrician, and she came in and she says, I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to run some tests and we're going to admit him. I just thought, maybe he's just got some kind of infection. Antibiotics will help and then he'll be fine. They did an x-ray and a CAT scan. Then I took him up to the pediatrics ward and I tucked him in. I said, it's been a long day. Get some sleep. I went home and I woke up early and there was a message on my cell phone to call the hospital. I called the pediatrician. I can't really describe that moment because I'm not even sure that I was really present. But I have a medical background. I knew exactly what she was saying. And I stopped her and I said, you're just going to have to forgive me. It's been just a few hours of sleep. And the way you're talking, it sounds like you're telling me that Zack has cancer. And she says, that's exactly what I'm saying. And you need to pack your bag as we are transporting him by helicopter to BC Children's immediately. I had called my mom and asked if she could take Brooklyn to school, but to first come up to the hospital to say goodbye to Zack because we weren't sure how long we would be gone. We were diagnosed a few days later with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Wow. The mass was wrapped around his aorta. So the swelling in his face was actually reaching his upper extremities.
That was going to be one of my questions, which was, how did you process the news? And you've already answered that. I mean, what do you do in that moment? I guess you go into survival mode.
Yeah, you go into a survival mode. In that moment of diagnosis, nothing made any sense, but I knew that I just had to figure it out as we went along. And then we got to BC Children's and there we stayed for 9 months.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. Incredible.
Yeah, that was his chemo protocol. We would get to come home for a day or two. We weren't home a whole lot.
During Zack's battle with cancer, how did you navigate through that for yourself and for him and as a family?
When you're faced with something like that, you really don't have a choice. There were times where I just needed to get through the day or the moment, but you don't have a choice. There is no giving up. That's not an option. So hanging on to hope was something that I did on a daily basis. And from the moment of diagnosis, it was truly just learning to live in the moment. One of my greatest lessons.
Absolutely.
In life.
So how did you find ways to stay strong and optimistic? Were there any other kinds of ways that helped you stay in that space of optimism and hope?
I did a lot of meditating. I read a lot. I tried to understand every step. I needed to know that I was doing everything that I possibly can as a mom.
Right.
I wasn't going to miss anything. All the protocol, all his treatments, communication between the doctors, the communication with my husband.
Absolutely. You mentioned that you have a medical background. What is that in, and did it help you through this?
Oh, yes. Right out of school, I became a long-term care aide. And then throughout my journey, I've always wanted to be a nurse, but there was some obstacles in my way. My path never took me straight into the RN. I now know why. I studied a lot in the medical fields. I worked in a doctor's office. I was very engaged with Zack's diagnosis.
So that must have helped a lot with just understanding a little bit more and not being so in the dark.
Just the vocabulary. And I knew that when they were talking about symptoms and what the medications may bring, I knew that they were telling me for a reason.
Once you knew Zach's cancer was terminal, what became most important for you to have Zach experience and to experience together with him?
I think it was January of 2014, after a month of radiation. Surgery wasn't an option, so we had to do all the different steps, but radiation was the last. And he ended up getting very, very sick. And the doctors came in and suggested that we do a wish trip through the Children's Wish Foundation. A wish trip? How am I to take him away? And his wish was to go somewhere hot, and he chose Turks and Caicos. And I said, is there a hospital in Turks and Caicos? How is this going to happen? They said, we are going to make it work.
Wow.
And we were given 2 dates. And one of the dates was his retake for his graduation pictures. So he wanted so badly to have a redo because he was bald at the time where he got his graduation pictures. I said, it has to be the other date. So we ended up going, and they had everything planned. And the four of us were able to go for a week. And none of us will ever forget that. It was amazing. You would have no clue that 2 or 3 months later, he would be gone. And Brooklyn will say that it was her highlight, that she got to spend that time with him.
That's amazing that you were able to enjoy the trip, spend that time together, be present with one another, and be able to cherish that memory.
Yeah, just keeping that connection and that love really just flowing and letting him know how much he's so loved. We didn't talk about being palliative. He would talk to me about it when it was just him and I, because he would have the hard questions. What do you think heaven's like? And what do you think it's going to be like?
How did you answer those questions?
I told him I believe that heaven was beautiful and that there is a lightness and beauty in heaven, that it feels like home. And hopefully he'll take a little bit of us with him.
Did that help him? Did it give him a sense of ease and calm about what was going to happen?
That was one thing about Zack, is that you would never know that he was going through this because he was very stoic. He just tried and did everything that he possibly could to beat it. I remember when he was in the hospital, when we were going to take the helicopter out, his coach came, and his coach and his teacher became like a brother to him. And I remember looking in, and they were knee to knee. Like, Zack was sitting on the bed and he was sitting on a chair, and he explained that he was going into the game of his life and that he wasn't able to get off the field until he finished the game. And I think he stood very true to that honoring.
Were you there with Zack when he passed?
Yeah. When we knew it was near, we were working with hospice at that time, and he was having lots of problems breathing. And he wanted to be at home for as long as possible. And I just, based on my experience with death, I knew that he was going to experience some difficulties. When hospice came in and told us that he was pretty close, I talked to him and I just said, I need you to be comfortable and I don't want you to suffer. He agreed to go into hospice. And that was a Thursday. The Thursday night, we had called the family to come and say goodbye to him. After everybody said goodbye to him, it was just the four of us, and we laid on our bed. And we just hugged each other and held hands, told each other how much we loved each other. And I will never forget his words that night, because he said to Wayne, myself, in Brooklyn, I had the best life and I wouldn't change a thing. I had the best mom and dad, and I had the best sister. And there's not one thing I would change in this moment. And I said, Zachary, you couldn't have given me a better gift than those words.
I didn't think I would be crying so much.
We took him in on Friday, and then the process started about midnight on Saturday, and he passed away on Sunday morning around 7:00.
Wow. Okay.
And I crawled into bed with him, and Wayne was hugging him when he passed.
So, what was present for all of you in that moment? Like, I don't even know how to ask the question.
In that moment of passing?
Yeah.
For me, as a parent, I think I could probably talk for Wayne as well, but Wayne and I were able to have him come into this life in our arms and then leave in our arms. So that's the only thing that I held on to.
Yeah. I imagine this is something that never leaves you, obviously, but you find ways to live on in a way that Zack would want for you. But the grief, I'm sure, is always there. So, how do you handle difficult days when the grief feels overwhelming for you?
I give myself permission to grieve. I realized a long time ago that I probably will grieve until I leave this world. Losing a child is probably, if not the worst thing to have to experience. I wouldn't want to wish that upon anybody. So I had to learn early that it was okay for me to have my low days. In the beginning, it was low days.
Yeah.
But over time, my low days didn't last for weeks. They lasted for days. And then now they might be just moments of grief.
How long ago now is it when Zack passed?
On May 25th of this year, it will be 10 years.
Wow. So, what advice do you offer those who are grieving the loss of a loved one and are struggling to find moments of joy? It sounds like you found a way to do that for yourself. So, what advice do you offer for those who are in that right now and feel like that could never be a possibility for them?
Well, I sit here today as a symbol of hope. At the time when I lost Zachary, I really didn't know how I was going to do it. I lost part of me. I didn't even know who I was, what kind of purpose I had. So my advice would be to a bereaved parent or somebody going through the cancer journey is to hang on to the hope. And as long as there's options, there's hope. It's okay to not be okay and to give yourself that permission, because a lot of people will say, oh, it's been 5 years and you should be better by now. People say the silliest things. I've gotten to realize that they just don't understand, and that's okay. I don't want anybody to understand what it feels like. My heart goes out to those that have that shared experience. It is not an easy experience.
No, I can't even imagine. But that's why your story is so important to share, because this is something that people are going through around the world. And to be able to hear what your experience is and how you've navigated through it is really important. What was Zach's most significant and inspiring victory in his life that you would love to share with us?
If he was standing here today, he would probably say everything that he achieved in sports was a victory for him. And then going through what he did with such determination and grace, really, was a huge victory for him. He had a beautiful girlfriend who was there right from the beginning all the way, and she's a huge part of our family. I look back now and I'm so grateful that he got to experience true love.
Oh, that's so
So,
lovely.
yeah.
Even if his life was shorter than obviously anyone would have wanted, it sounds like he got to experience having an incredible family, beautiful parents, and a wonderful sister. To be able to experience true love by the age of 18 and just to have all the love and support and community, that's incredible that he got to experience that.
Yeah.
And then he said, I had the best life.
The big story.
Yes. So you then became a family navigator for Island Kids Cancer Association. What were some of the triumphs that you witnessed in the families you supported, and how did those victories impact you personally?
My position was that I would be in contact with all the families on Vancouver Island and the Gulf Islands that had children with cancer and that were going through the cancer diagnosis. We supported the families that were in all stages. So I just really tried to help navigate them through their journeys. There is no big, huge victories per se. I call them small wins. And we celebrate those small wins, whatever they look like. And if the fact that you got out of bed today, that's a win.
Wonderful. What are some of the small daily victories for yourself, and how do you celebrate those?
In the beginning, during my heavy grief, right after Zack passed away, I visualized my heart center as a patchwork quilt. So my small daily victories were when I would get through a day, a birthday, or a significant event, or the first Christmas, I would visualize myself sewing up this patch onto my quilt. And over time, I knew that my heart would feel warmer, but there will always be a patch missing. So that is the analogy that I had, the fact that I got up in the morning and I got dressed and that I was able to make dinner or brush my teeth or
Yes.
anything. I would sew up a patch on my quilt.
You and I are very similar that way. It's the visualizations, especially around anything heart related. I love that analogy. How's your heart quilt doing now?
My heart quilt is much, much warmer, and I don't have to sew on as many patches.
I love you. So, you are an energy healer and you incorporate many different modalities into your work. I know you as a master Reiki practitioner and an intuitive. When did you realize you had intuitive abilities?
I've always been an empath. I've always been very aware of energy around me. I would hear these little whispers. We call them our gut feeling. It is over time that I realized that was actually my intuition that was telling me what direction to go, the guidance that I needed, the strength that I needed to pull from. That is what I would call my intuition. So when I was younger, I felt things, but I couldn't explain them. I couldn't understand.
Do you feel your intuition had a great deal to do with helping you through that situation with Zack? And is there a
Mhm.
specific instance when your intuition is actually what got you through something when nothing else was working?
My intuition is like my best friend in a sense because it's daily guidance and I had to learn to trust it. See, the thing is, a lot of people don't trust in their intuition. We all have it. We
Mhm.
all have that within us. It's whether we work on it and trust it.
Yeah. At what point did you give into that trust? Like when you said, you know what, actually, this is legit. This has substance to it. I'm going to start listening to those whispers, to that inner voice of mine, to my intuition and trust it.
My intuition was pretty bang on throughout his diagnosis, which I trusted, but it was kept within me. I did not share those moments with anybody. It was more when I really started to do the deep healing on myself,
Hmm.
was when it really was pronounced. And then being guided to work on others scared me half to death. I resisted that for a long time.
Interesting. What was that resistance, do you think?
Well, I changed a lot. When Zack passed away, there was a part of me that left and never really came back. I knew that I wasn't the same person and that in order for me to be here, to exist, I had to change my outlook, my passions. I had a different purpose.
Mm.
And I didn't know what that was. There's so much energy that goes into trying to find your purpose. We all go through that, looking at what are we supposed to do? Who are we? I just had this one moment. It was probably about 6 months after Zach passed away, where I woke up after weeks of being in that rabbit hole.
Mm.
And I realized, okay, I got to stop looking for this big, huge life purpose. What can I start with? And I realized that our kids watch us
Yeah.
and learn from our actions and our words. Brooklyn was 15. And I realized that if my only purpose in this life was to show her that she can get through the unimaginable gracefully, then that's my purpose. But that's when the healing actually started.
That's incredible. And I
Mhm.
love that you mentioned your ability to trust in yourself and your intuition really solidified when you were going through that healing journey, because
Mhm.
I found the same for myself. My healing has been directly connected to learning how to trust myself, trust in life. I do believe they go hand in hand that way. Do you have any communication with Zach?
I do. For the longest time, I would have a visual of him in my head. And this is a really profound moment for me where the intuition really came in. But in meditations, he would come to me and sit with me. That's what I would visualize. But I was taking a class one time and we walked through this meditation. I looked for him in my meditation and he wasn't there. And then when I tried to visualize him, I couldn't remember what he looked like. And that scared me. The facilitator asked me if I wanted to share my experience. And I said, no. Why couldn't I remember what my son looked like? Because you hold on to what he smelled like, looked like, sounded like. And all those were all gone. The class had left and she pulled me aside and she goes, what happened? And I said, I forgot what my son looked like. And she said, honey, he's standing right behind you. He's saying, tell my mom to close her eyes. And I closed my eyes and she goes, now feel him. And all of a sudden, I got these goosebumps all over my body, this sensation of energy that overcame me. And all of a sudden, my heart filled with this unconditional love. And she says, you no longer have to visualize him. You have to feel him now. That was me trusting in my intuition and feeling that energy and moving forward from that.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. I'm honestly speechless. And I love that it went from you needing to manufacture a
Mhm.
visualization to you experiencing
Mhm.
Zack and his energy. And that
Mhm.
is so beautiful. Speaking about energy, what drew you to practice energy healing?
Initially, it was my own healing. My only hope was to heal my broken heart and to find the new Tanya. So that energy healing was a huge part. I don't know if I would be here, honestly, without going down that
Yeah.
spiritual path of just trying to heal.
Well, I'm very happy that you're still here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
me too. Me too.
I did mention before that you incorporate many different modalities into your energy healing practice. Can you share what some of those are with us?
I'm certified in Reiki. I'm a Reiki master and teacher. I do Indian head massage. I am certified in reflexology, house healing, Reiki drumming. Oh, crystal healing. I love crystals. Mhm.
And for anyone who doesn't know, can you explain what Reiki is?
Well, it's a holistic technique with the use of life force energies. All the modalities that I do require working with subtle energy. I always say that we're just this conduit. The energy doesn't come from us, the energy comes from the divine or life force, and it goes through our hands. And I really take a lot of pride in my intentions to do the best that I can for the clients that I have and for their highest good.
For anyone listening, I have experienced firsthand Tanya's Reiki healing, and she's incredible, a real master. I did go in a little bit skeptical because I've never had anything like that done before. What advice would you offer someone who is skeptical about energy healing, but is struggling with adversity in their life and open to an alternative approach to support their well being?
If they're open, that's the first step. I always say, if you've made it to that chair across from me,
Right.
there's a reason for it.
Mm.
It's worth a try.
Absolutely. Now that I know that you have a medical background as well, how do you feel energy healing can complement traditional forms of therapy or medical treatments?
In the world today, it's kind of complicated. The medical system has changed considerably. I have huge respect for the doctors and the nurses and any medical staff, but it's really easy to hand people medications. As a bereaved parent, everybody wants to fix you, and we can't be fixed.
Got it.
And
Yeah,
maybe we don't want to be fixed in a sense. I don't know, but there's no fixing this. It's about listening and being in the moment with that person. I think the difference is that we're looking more and more into that holistic line of healing modalities. It's out there. There's acupuncture, massage, acupressure, Chinese medicine. All those things bring something that a counselor or a doctor or medication can't do. And
absolutely.
with a lot of the practitioners, they bring experience.
Yes, life experience. One of the biggest lessons you learned when you were going through that experience with Zach and your family is learning how to be in the present moment and appreciate those moments. Something I love to ask guests to
Mhm.
share is what they feel their rainbow story is. And that's the overarching storyline of their life so far that is tied to an important life lesson and in turn tied to a life's purpose or a life's calling. So if you were to string together all these moments that you were there for and have appreciated. What does your rainbow story start to look like? And can you share that with us?
I look at my life as two different chapters, and we're full of chapters. But my first chapter was my life before Zack or with Zack. And then my rainbow story would be my life after Zack. Because even though I only had 18 years with him, I really truly felt that I lived a lifetime with him. I'm grateful for that. But the challenges, fears, heartache, grief, sadness, all of those really challenging emotions came after he passed away. My rainbow story is me really walking through the dark to find that light that I knew always was there, but at times really couldn't reach it.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Mm-hmm.
There's one other type of victory story that I like to ask guests to share about because I think it's something that's really useful for all of us to be able to do, which is to find the victories within failures. Is there an instance in your life where you experienced something as a quote unquote failure at the time, but as time went on, were able to identify the gift of the victory that actually laid within that?
I look at failure as an opportunity to try again. In looking at my story, and one thing I would say it would be more of a regret when we had found out that Zack was palliative. Brooklyn was 15 at the time, and we chose not to tell her that he was palliative. That was the decision that we made at that time based on her age, based on what was happening. A few years after that, Brooklyn approached us and said, "Why didn't you tell me? One day he was here and the next day he was not." And I understood in that moment that might have been the wrong thing to do, that I had failed her. In no simple terms, that I took that away from her. There was a lot of regret for the longest time. And I explained to her the reason why I chose to do that was the love that they had for each other was so strong that if I were to tell her that he was going to pass away, that's all that she would be focusing on, and that she wouldn't enjoy those moments that we had, those walks, those talks, the laugh, the tears. She wouldn't be in that present moment. And I needed her to be in that present moment. She wasn't there the night that Zack passed away. And I've explained to her that I wouldn't want her to have had to witness that at all. I wanted her to have the beautiful image and memories that she had of him close to her heart.
Yeah.
So,
what I'm hearing there is you may have regret about that, but at the same time, the perspective you can take on that is you were doing the best you could in that moment with what you thought was the best for her. And it all came from a place of total love.
my daughter has grown into a beautiful young lady.
Yes, she's incredible. Very excited to ask this last question before we go to a quick round of questions. So, as an intuitive, you communicate with spirit. And so I was curious, has spirit or Zack ever shared with you what our most important triumph is to be had in life as individuals and collectively for humanity?
Yeah. A common denominator in all my experiences with spirit, with healing, with my son, with loved ones is love, unconditional love, unconditional love.
I love it. I do feel like I set that question up a little bit because I was really hoping that's the answer.
It comes down to love. Everything comes down to love. And if you can trust that love to come in, of course, that's what you're going to put out. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, are you ready for a quick round of questions? When do you feel the most seen for who you truly are?
Oh, that's a tough question. I took a huge leap of faith last fall to solely do my practice, my energy work. And that was huge. It was almost like I was standing in the middle of the road completely naked. Oh my gosh, what have I done? But I just want people to know that I'm authentic and everything that I do comes from love.
Well, I see that. And I love that you feel seen when you are doing your passions
Mhm.
because it's directly connected to who you are and why you're here. How do you honor yourself every day?
I reflect a lot
Mm,
on my thoughts, my actions. So I'm constantly in reflection.
that's a beautiful
Mhm.
way to honor yourself and to foster growth through that as well. How do you honor Zach throughout your day?
Mm. Well, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't think of him. He's probably one of the last people I think about at night, and he's one of the first people I think about in the day. I honor him through moments and memories. I see him in everything. I go
Beautiful.
down to the ballpark and I see him on the field. One of the greatest things that I think about a lot is that I know that I will see him again. And that makes me really happy.
Yes. Do you have a piece of jewelry or accessory that is meaningful to you? And if so, why?
Yeah. When Zach was diagnosed, it was just before Christmas. And I had seen this beautiful native necklace, and it was an eagle. Eagle spirit is really powerful, represents freedom and strength.
Wow.
I bought that for him for Christmas that year, and he wore that every day.
Wow.
And then when he passed away, I wore it. So it was a part of him that I wore for the longest time. So I still have that. And all three of us have a piece of jewelry that holds a bit of his ashes.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. You'll have to show me next time we see each
I
other.
will.
Last question. You've sort of answered this throughout this whole conversation, but how do you define a victory or a triumph for yourself?
I would say that I don't define it in words. I define it more of a feeling. One of my favorite quotes is from Maya Angelou. People may forget what you've done, but they will never forget how you feel. So the feeling part of it is one that I take to heart.
I love that. That is just wonderful. Tania, you, as I said before, are an incredible soul. I'm so blessed and feel so grateful to know you and have you
Mhm.
in my life. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I know that was a journey in itself. I'm just so appreciative that you were courageous and generous enough to share with all of us today. And for anyone
Mhm.
who may benefit from hearing your story, I truly hope that this reaches them.
Mhm.
Thank you. I love you so much.
Well, I love you too. And a big heart hug for everybody that's listening.
Tania, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I recognize that some moments were incredibly hard to speak about, but that it was also really important for you to be able to support and inspire those who share your experience. There are so many virtues I want to honor you for, such as strength and healing. But what stood out most is how you are a beacon of hope for all who are in their darkest days and need to know it's possible for them to find their way back to the light. And so please accept this Love Medal certificate for going above and beyond in the area of hope and for channeling your love for Zack into the support you give those who need healing and compassion. Tania, I am humbled by your story, and I am present to your incredible capacity for love. I see, honor, and celebrate you with all my heart. If you'd like to connect with Tania, we've included her contact details in the show notes. Thank you to those listening and watching. Please like and subscribe. If you'd like to honor yourself or someone you care about with a love medal, please visit lovemedals.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at lovemedals. I see, honor, and celebrate you. I didn't think I would be crying so much. I'm so sorry. And I didn't get any Kleenex.